This is a Sony PlayStation 3 that has a problem. Specifically, I have a problem with the Blu-ray player. In order to fix that problem, I'm going to have to downgrade the firmware to an earlier version, specifically version 3.55. Now, this is the PS3 FAT, the first version. This came out in 2006. This is a model number CECHL, which came out in 2008. And if you're curious, the version number is, it's a little sticker back there. Now, in order to alter the firmware, I'm going to have to disassemble the machine. Now, there are several very good videos available on how to do this, and I've made one myself as well. If you don't already know how to disassemble a PS3, please refer to one of those videos before proceeding any further. At this point, we will talk about the software we are going to be using in order to perform this downgrade. There are several software packages out there that people have put together. This is the one that I'm using today, and it's a file called e3flasher-all-in-one.rar. Now, the RAR is a compression format, so when you download this file, you then need to decompress it. I recommend the program 7-zip. That's probably the most common program for compressing and decompressing files. I've already gone ahead and done that. This is the decompressed file right here. We'll go ahead and open this up. And let's open that folder, and this is what we see. The process of downgrading is very conveniently broken into 4 steps. Whoever put this together was being very thoughtful. This last file, E3 error codes, it's just what it sounds like. This is just a list of errors that the E3 flasher can generate, and so you can quickly figure out what the problem is. Now, the files in step 1 we probably won't be using. Now, in step 2, we have 3 folders labeled NOR dump 1, 2, and 3. We're going to be making 3 copies of the data on the NOR chip. Okay. And we're going to check the integrity of that data with this program called NOR Inspector. In step 3, we're going to take one of the memory dumps and we're going to modify it with a patch. And we're going to apply that patch using this program called usethistoPatchDump.exe. This is also known as PS3 Dump Checker. And this program will create a file that you will then write back to the NOR memory chip. In step 4, there is a directory called Reassembling 3.55 Downgrader. If we open up this, we find this folder right here. This is where the actual modified firmware lives, and we will copy that to the root of our thumb drive when we are ready to actually downgrade. Now, I have disassembled the machine, and this is the main board. You're looking at the underside of the board. This is the front, and this is the underside, and these are our 2 chips, the CPU chip and the video chip. This is the firmware chip. This is a flash memory chip. It's either made by Samsung, as in this case, or Spansion. It has 28 pins on each side, a total of 56 pins. Now, this chip can be one of 2 technologies, either NAND, that's N-A-N-D, or NOR, that's N-O-R. And those are acronyms for 2 different types of memory technology. Now, NAND chips were used in the earlier versions. This particular model, as I said, was CECHL. Now, all of them start with CECH. The last letter is the specific model number, and they are arranged sequentially. The very first version was CECHA, and then B, C, and so on. This is model L. Now, if your PS3 is model A through G, you're going to use NAND technology.
If it's H or later, that would be H through Q, it's going to use NOR memory.
And it's really important because they are different. They are not interchangeable. This flash memory chip is rewritable, and Sony has issued a series of software updates. They basically push it to your machine when you're connected to the internet. The version of firmware on this particular machine is version 4.75. The latest version as of the making of this video, I believe, is 4.81. One of the restrictions on their firmware is they don't allow you to install a version earlier than what you currently have. This is the problem we have to overcome. The reason for that is the Sony firmware is extremely restrictive. It allows you to do almost nothing except put in a disk and play a game. Now, there was one exception to that. That was firmware version 3.55, which had a flaw in it, which some smart people discovered and realized that they could use this version to do all kinds of things that other versions couldn't. Now, in my case, I need that version because the Blu-ray player on this machine has failed. One of the strange idiosyncrasies of this machine is that the Blu-ray player has to be matched to this board. Okay, there's some sort of a key number on the Blu-ray player that has to match a number on this board, or else it simply won't work. No idea why anybody would design anything like that. It makes it extremely difficult to fix the thing. And ordinarily, you can't do that. The only way to do that is you have to go back to this earlier version. The software is normally so restrictive that when you do open it up with version 3.55, some people refer to this as jailbreaking. The only way for me to match my Blu-ray player up and get it working again is I have to downgrade to version 3.55. By the way, the process of matching up those key numbers between the Blu-ray player and the main board is referred to as marrying. Sort of like a husband and wife, I guess. Can't remarry without downgrading. In order to downgrade the software, we have to read the information on the memory chip and make an alteration to it and then reinstall it. Specifically, an alteration that allows us to install an earlier version of the firmware. Now, the device that people are using is this thing here, this E3 flasher. You can find these for sale on eBay. Lots of them, typically for under $45, including shipping. It has this board here and this little front panel that plugs into it. And most importantly, it's got this very clever device here. This snaps on top of your memory chip. We will demonstrate that a little closer. It fits right on top of your memory chip like so. And there are pins, and 28 on each side, that match up with the pins on here. And you snap this little thing on top of it. And again, it's important which way you put it on. There's a little circle on this chip right here in the upper left corner. That's where pin 1 is located, okay? And so pin 1 here is located there. So you have to put it on this way. Don't put it on backwards. You might hear a little snap as it goes on. Now, it's absolutely critical that you get a really good fit here, okay? Every single pin has to make good contact. If even one of those pins does not make good contact and you try to write to that chip, you'll end up bricking your machine. Now, one of the reasons that people sometimes get poor contact is this little surface-mounted resistor right there. That little bitty thing right there. The problem is when this little cap fits on top, it kind of blocks it a little bit. It literally sort of holds up one end. You know, it's a high spot, so you can't get the thing even. What you do about that is you have to shave a little bit of plastic off of this little cap here, this little socket. I just took a very fine file and I shaved it off right there, so that resistor, that surface-mounted resistor, can fit underneath this thing, and so that this thing can now be flush with the board. So if that resistor is giving you trouble, Take a little fine file, and I've made a separate video about exactly how to do that. And I'll just tell you that after shaving that down, it really fits a lot better. It really snaps on you. You can actually feel a little click when it goes on. It gives much better contact. One other cautionary note, this thermal paste, this stuff gets all over everything if you're not careful. And this stuff is very tenacious. It's about as bad as crankcase oil. You know, if you get this stuff on your clothes, you're never getting it out. So be real careful around that stuff. Once you touch something, and then you touch something else, and then, you know, and then before you know it, the stuff's everywhere. So just be mindful of that. Now a little information on our E3 flasher. You can kind of see where there's a little bit of that darn thermal grease has gotten on things. Very hard to get it off. On the front panel, we have a number of things here. This little device here, this is where you put your memory chip, okay? This takes a micro SD card. Okay, you push it down like that and flip it open. You can put your micro SD card in there and down and then pop it in place. You have a series of switches. The one you're most concerned about is this switch here. It says backup or program. Okay, that's the most important one. Typically all the switches will be down, except this one will be up when you're taking a data dump and then down when you're reprogramming back. Okay, then we have these 8 lights right here, these 8 LEDs. When the system is installed properly and it's basically idling, the alternate lights will be illuminated, 2, 4, 6, 8, and then it'll go 1, 3, 5, 7. It's sort of dancing back and forth about every second. That means everything's basically okay and it's just idling, it's not doing anything. When it's reading or writing, if it's doing it properly, it'll light up the first light first, and then it'll slowly move across. And once it reaches the last light, it'll then go back into that dancing light mode, telling you that it's finished. Now, reading the chip is a lot quicker than writing to the chip. Reading the chip takes maybe 2 minutes. Writing takes quite a bit longer. And you start the process by hitting the start button. Okay, for our purposes, we don't need to worry about the eSATA socket or this USB socket or this switch here. Let me just clarify something here. This device, this E3 flasher, works only for NOR technology. This will not work for NAND technology. You'll need a machine with serial number CECHH through Q for this device to work for you. And even says E3 flasher NOR flash clip cable. Now, I can't emphasize this enough. The single most important thing is to get good contact between all of these pins. I'm going to remove our socket, exposing our chip. This is a tiny piece of 600 grit sandpaper. And I'm just going to sort of run it over these pins very carefully, just to remove any oxidation, anything to improve the contact. Just very lightly over those pins. I'm not really looking to take down any metal. I just want to take off any oxidation. See, you may be able to see I'm actually getting a little bit of oxidized metal on there to kind of clean off any oxidation. I did it on both sets of pins, plus I did it on the pins in the socket as well. You know, if you screw this thing up, there's no going back. So I want to, you know, once you brick this thing, you're kind of finished. If even one pin doesn't make good contact, when you try to flash that chip, you're going to end up bricking your machine. So you want to do everything you can to increase the odds of a success. I'm going to apply a piece of tape. I'm going to hold the socket down even tighter. Now remember, we're looking at the underside of the board. Now this is good electrical tape here. I'm just going to use a transparent tape just to kind of hold that cable out of the way, keep it from getting into trouble. I'm going to put the bottom lid on here to kind of see how things fit. Maybe I will pull this thing out of the way, huh? The reason I'm doing this, I want to get some measurements. Okay, so what I'm looking at here, here's our memory chip right here, and here's the metal can on top of it, and I measured that there is 6 millimeters of space. What I want to do is put something in here to apply pressure, and press down on that socket, but not too hard. I don't want to break anything. So I've got about 6 millimeters of space to fill up. So let's see how we can do that. The first thing I'm going to put on here is a coin. Specifically, this is a nickel, a nice hard metal surface. And what it does is it will apply pressure evenly across this entire chip. Next, I'm going to take a piece of styrofoam, which is kind of crushy, it gives quite a bit. Again, I want something that can crush down a little bit. This is about 7 millimeters thick. Okay, I'm going to put a piece of tape over the combination of the coin and the styrofoam. Okay, I put the lid back on. It seems like it's fitting okay. It doesn't seem like too much force. Okay, I think we'll go with that. Okay, now I've put the bottom shield back in the plastic lower case. And then we shall put our main board on top of it. Okay, now we can put the top cover back on. Now we have our tensioners in place. I'm going to screw these in slowly and carefully, going back and forth to even up the pressure. Okay, I'll plug in the fan. And now our E3 card reader. Now, normally the kit comes with a little metal bracket to kind of hold this thing in place. I don't have that bracket, unfortunately. I'm just going to slide in a piece of paper right here, simply to provide some insulation. I don't want, any abnormal metal-to-metal contact causing a short circuit. Then we're going to slide in our E3 reader, and we connect our ribbon cable. Okay, I heard a nice snap, a nice crisp snap. Now, you could theoretically slide this all the way in. It's got a little pins to match up that socket. They really don't do anything. Actually, I'm going to pull it out a bit, sort of flatten out that cable, because I have to put the power supply on top of it. I have to make contact with those two big pins. Connect the front cable and the rear cable. Okay, now we have that power supply in place. Our E3 card kind of sticking out the end. Okay, now we have to put in our micro card reader. So we slide that back and then open. Unfortunately, this hinge here is kind of flimsy. I kind of worry about it making good contact. And then up. Okay, SD card is in. Okay, now I have it hooked up to a power cord. And all the switches are down except for number 3, which is up, and that's what we want. Switch will hit the main power switch. We have a red power light. I'm going to now touch the power button. And our lights have come on. That's good. Okay, all the lights are down except number 3, which is up. That's what we want. And you see them sort of dancing back and forth. Okay, our PlayStation is at least partially working. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and hit the start button and see what we get. Good. We've got the first light. That's what we want to see. We want to see this thing slowly walk across. Okay, we're back to the dancing lights again. That means it's finished. Shut it down now. We will now remove our micro SD card and see what we got. I have taken that micro SD card and put it in my computer, and here's what we downloaded. Exactly what we hope to get. File bkpps3.bin and also e3flasher.log. I'm going to go over to our E3 Flasher all-in-one directory. Whoever set this up did just such a great job. We just go to step 2. I'm going to take these files. I'm going to go ahead and move them off of the SD card, and I'm going to move them onto that directory, the nor-dump1 directory. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to run the nor inspector program to see if what we've got is what we want. So I'm going to take this file, just kind of drop it anywhere on here. Let's read the status. This is the most important one. What we want to see are a bunch of OKs. OK on every one of them. Great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat this 2 more times, exactly what I just did. I'm going to get 2 more dumps, and I'm going to do that now. Okay, I've just completed the 3rd dump. I'm going to go ahead and copy the files off of the SD card. Move them into nor dump 3. And now we have essentially 3 copies of the same thing. Okay, now I'm going to run the nor inspector program again, and we will check all 3 dumps. Let's look at number 1 again. Status, all green, good. Nor dump number 2. All green, excellent. Nor dump number 3. All green, excellent. So why did we do this 3 times in a row? The reason was to just confirm that we've got a good, solid connection. If it fails, if you lose even 1 pin, you're going to end up bricking your machine. So you want to be pretty much 100% sure that you got good connections. So I think we do. I think we're ready to proceed. Okay, next we run this program simply called use this to patch dump. Okay, now I'm going to arbitrarily, I'm just going to pick the 3rd dump here. And it asks us the very simple question, do you want to patch this image? Yes, I do. That was quick. Okay, and it has created for us this file here, patched. Now I'm going to take that patched file and I'm going to copy it back onto my SD card. And there we are. Now I am going to have to rename the file. I'm going to have to remove that patched part of it, so it has the same name. Okay, now we're going to bring that back to our PlayStation. Now, what happens if you run your dump checker and you get an error? Like this. Failed on 2 out of 138 checks. Right here, these 2 steps right here. Now, if you encounter this error, you're probably using a version of dump checker which is out of date. You'll have to go get the most recent version of dump checker. Now, as of the production of this video, that would be version 4.91. we reinserted our micro SD card back into the E3 flasher. Now the one change we have to make is we have to flip switch number 3 down. It was in the read position, now it's in the right position. So now we hit the main switch, and red light is on, power button. Okay, got the dancing lights. We'll wait for a second for our error message to come up on the screen here. There's our little error message, good. I don't know if it's necessary to wait for that, but I don't want to take any chances. We're now going to start the process. Okay, we have our first light. Okay, that's it. It went all the way across. It took about 1 minute per light, maybe a little less. Okay, I'm now going to shut it down and hope everything worked. Now at this time, we can remove the E3 card reader. We really don't need it anymore. So we will go ahead and remove our power supply. And we can remove the E3 card reader. Remove this cable here. Go ahead and remove our fan power supply. And we have to unscrew these guys. Back and forth just to kind of keep that tension even. Now we can remove that top plate, and with any luck, this will just slide right out. And it looks like our little trick worked well. You kind of see how that styrofoam crushed down rather nicely to about half its original height. It's nice and soft, you know, so it'll crush down without applying too much force. That's the thing, you absolutely have got to get good contact on every pin.
We will turn the board right side up and reinsert it back into the PlayStation 3.
Okay, we'll put the top shield back on.
We will put the spring tensioners back on and tighten them down.
Okay, we put these little tensioners back on. And we shall reinsert our disk drive. And we shall put our power supply back on.
Reconnect the front cable and reconnect the back cable.
We go back to our PC now, back to the E3 flasher all-in-one, and we go to step 4, and we have this folder, Rogero 3.55 downgrader. We open that, and here we have this directory called PS3. We copy this directory to the root of a thumb drive.
The thumb drive must be formatted to FAT32.
And that's what we're going to use to install the downgraded firmware. We have plugged in the thumb drive with the PS3 downgrader firmware on it. And now we're going to restart. We're plugged in, power switch on, and power button. It wants us to connect a controller using a USB cable and then press the PS button. Okay, we have gone ahead and connected the controller, and we will press the PS button. It's telling us we need firmware later than version 4.75. Well, of course, the patch we put in allows us to put in software that's earlier than 4.75. That was the whole point of all that. We're going to go ahead and hit the Start and Select now.
If you get stuck at this screen, you may need to reconnect your Blu-ray player. Go ahead and shut down the power and reconnect the Blu-ray player.
We've gone ahead and reconnected the Blu-ray player. Let's see if that fixes our problem. Okay, again, we'll press the PS button, press Select and Start at the same time.
Reconnecting the Blu-ray player fixed the problem, and the downgrading proceeded to the next stage.
And here it comes, folks. We've got it 100%. It is now rebooting on its own. It asks us to press the PS button again. Okay, now we can read through all of this. I go ahead and hit the X button. I accept the user agreement and I hit the X button again. And once we hit the X button this third time, we are committed. We can't stop it. And now it's rebooting. Success! We have successfully downgraded to Firmware 3.55 Rogero. We will navigate over to System Settings, and we will confirm that we are on version 3.55. And there it is, version 3.55. Now that I have successfully downgraded the machine to version 3.55, I will be able to remarry my Blu-ray player to my PlayStation 3. That will be the topic of another video. And that is how we downgrade a PlayStation 3 to version 3.55.